right, back from the 2025 Borealis Psychedelic Science Summit in Stockholm. My name is Yoshi, and I am joined now by Professor Rebecca Böhme.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi. Thanks.
We're almost at the end of day 2. It's been a couple of hectic days. Has it?
It has. I'm a bit exhausted. A lot of information, but
yes,
it was great.
Here.
It was
Same
great
here.
too. Really good.
Yeah, I bet. So many interesting talks, so many interesting people. Have you had the chance to check out many talks, or have you been busy with your own presentations and stuff?
I mean, all of it, right? Networking, talking to people in the breaks.
Yeah.
Going to the different talks. We had a dinner in the evening yesterday. So non-stop, but it was good.
Non-stop. I agree. It has been very well organized. A big shout out to everyone who is working on, all the volunteers, all the people who are doing the project management.
Absolutely.
It's been fantastic for sure. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to working in the psychedelic field.
So I'm actually a biologist. I studied biology and neuroscience. I did a lot of different things before, so I'm a bit new actually in the psychedelic field.
All right.
I'm interested in the sense of self. Mm-hmm. Specifically the bodily sense of self and how that's affected in different psychiatric conditions. But then, of course, the step to psychedelics is maybe not too surprising, right? Because you want to do some kind of experimental manipulation or intervention to affect the sense of self or bodily sense of self. So because of that, I did a study where we included ketamine, did a ketamine infusion during a scan and looked at self-other distinction. And now I'm actually running a really big clinical trial where we're looking at prolonged grief disorder, and we are doing an intervention with psilocybin.
Interesting. How did you go from biology to wanting to study the sense of self? What made you go that way?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess I started with cells and then brains and then kind of worked my way up to the full organism. But I'm also interested in philosophy and I think, I just think the sense of self's really interesting, and it's really something that also is affected in really many psychiatric conditions. And I don't think we pay so much attention to this. Like there's a lot of focus on processes like working memory or learning and things like that. But I think we need to look at these very basic processes, just like self-other distinction, sense of agency, interoception, feeling the inside of your own body, perceiving your body.
Right.
And I think that's actually affected in many psychiatric conditions and is not studied enough.
Right. That is so interesting. I'm also fascinated by the sense of self. And it's... we can get very philosophical here, but let's get let's get to another question first. Tell me about your current work. What are you most excited about in your current work?
I'm especially excited because my psilocybin delivery is coming next week to Sweden.
Fantastic.
So that means that I can actually start my clinical trial. So this is a huge EU-funded project. It's actually been funded. I received this grant in 2023, so I believe that actually my study is the first EU-funded psilocybin study.
Fantastic.
So I have an ERC studying grant, and I'm just so excited to start this project. So we will look at sense of self in prolonged grief disorder, so people who have lost somebody that they're close to, and have kind of continued and intense levels of grief after 12 months. And we look at sense of self, many different measures, and then people will receive a prep session, meeting with the therapist. Then we would do the psilocybin session. We have an integration session, and then we repeat all the measures on the sense of self. So my hope is basically that the psilocybin supports people in the adaptation to the loss experience. In grief, there's this idea that if you're kind of in this complicated or prolonged grief, that you might be kind of stuck in your expectations, your prior expectations about the world and also about the self. You have to update your model. You have to update your model about the world, about the self, to integrate this experience, the loss. The idea is kind of like following the rebus model is the I'm trying to basically target this, loosen up the priors, and help people reestablish the sense of self.
So interesting. When you say measure the sense of self, what does that mean? How do you measure the sense of self?
Yeah, it's complicated, right? The sense of self is not a thing. And I think it's really important to kind of address all the different aspects that contribute to this, yeah? So just looking, I mean, first of all, you can look at many different layers of the sense of self. You can have like the very basic bodily sense of self. Sometimes we call that minimal sense of self. You can have higher order cognitive sense of self, the reflective self, the autobiographical self. So I'm most interested at the bodily kind of level, yeah? The most basic level.
Right.
And even there, you can look at so many different aspects, right? It's not like just, this is the body, this is it. But like, so you can look at, for example, like self-other distinction, agency, interoception. You can look at proprioception, basic somatosensory processing. So there's many different components already at this very basic level. So in my lab, we mostly look at self-other distinction and interoception. Okay.
Is consciousness part of this, or are you just looking at the bodily sense of self?
This becomes very philosophical, right?
Yes.
Where the question is like, can you be conscious without a sense of self? And that's like a huge discussion that, I mean, you know, we could get into.
Yes.
I know that a lot of people think that you can be basically, you have like
a brain
consciousness basically separated from a sense of self. You can lose the sense of self.
Oh, so consciousness is not included in the sense of self package necessarily.
I think most people believe that, you know, you have consciousness and then sense of self is somewhere in there, but you can remove the sense of self and still be conscious. And I would actually disagree. And I think that's going to be very controversial. But I think that, you know, that you're still the observer. You're still the one who's conscious, right? So like, even though you might not feel it in that moment, nobody has really like investigated that, right? This is all based on phenomenology that people say like, I lose myself. But have we actually looked at this? Have we looked at very basic measures like self-other distinction, agency, just perception of your body? Like, you know, very basic measures that we can use to kind of try to approach this feeling of sense of self. And so we don't actually know. And I think I kind of believe that we do still have a very basic minimal sense of self. For me, that is the most basic.
Right.
Also level of consciousness in a way, but I know that's a bit controversial.
That's very interesting. So at the bottom is sense of self, and then consciousness builds from that. Is that what you're saying?
I would say they're just like they're connected, and you can't
have one without the other.
No, because I mean the self is the thing that's conscious, right?
Yes, I guess it is. and what's your take on, is this just neurons firing that create this sense of self and consciousness, or are we a receptor of whatever, something from somewhere else?
I think we are a body, right? We are a biological mechanism. We are this entity that is made by nature, comes from nature, and I think that really consciousness subsides, or the sense of self subsides in this bodily presence that we have.
Right. But it's not enough, the whole brain in a vat experiment, that you could just have a full human experience without a body, just a brain. You don't believe in that?
No. I think, I mean, the brain is an important part, of course, but I think, you know, the whole organism is crucial. And it's tricky, right? Because you can then start these like very, I think a little silly arguments where you're like, well, I can cut off a finger and it's still me, and like keep going. But really our actual experience of the self, and I think it's also very important to mention how we develop the sense of self is as a body, right? Like if you look at the development, like we start, you know, as a couple of cells, and then as like a developing physical body, and the brain kind of like is in there as a part of it, but like all the other parts of the body, that we all develop like these organs and the limbs and everything, and that is what forms the sense of self, right? And
where does the sense of self begin?
And I think that's also a very interesting part, right? Because so we can see that already in the womb prenatally, the embryo will show goal-directed movement to touch themselves and also to touch the other. And that means in most cases, when we just have one baby, that means they touch the wall of the womb. So the mother's body, right?
Right.
So already there, like there's this kind of extremely social interaction in a way, right? Like your first experience of the outside world is another body.
Right.
And already there you can see that embryos use like goal-directed movements and kind of the sense of touch to like feel their own body and feel the outside world or the others.
So interesting. So, if I understand correctly, then other animals, other beings also have a sense of self?
Yeah.
But not necessarily a consciousness, or is that a...
No, yeah, I think so. I mean, then, it gets tricky, like how far can you go down? Like how much of like a brain do you need? I think it's tricky. And I mean, there's probably, dimensional, there's kind of layers, it's a spectrum. But I would definitely say that they do have a sense of self and some level of consciousness.
Man, we live in such a fascinating world, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much to investigate. So interesting. Tell me about in the broader psychedelic field. What are some highlights? What's something that you're excited about today or moving forward? Maybe something you heard about during the conference or anything.
Many exciting developments, right? Like, I mean, I'm very happy to see studies where we can actually see like a dose-response relationship because of the issue with blinding in these studies. And when we actually have like, very clear like dose, like increasing dose, and then the relationship to the response is really follows this dose. Like, I think that these are beautiful studies that really show that, there is really something that's happening. And that's something I'm very excited about.
Cool. So interesting. Tell people where they can find or follow your work.
I'm on Blue Sky. You can just Google my name. I have a website. I'm at Linköping University, so you can find my lab there when you just Google my name. And
What's the website address?
My own website is just my name, RebeccaBöhme.com. So the is an O and an E.
Okay.
But just Google me and it should show up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sitting down to have a chat with me.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Much appreciated. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. My name is Yoshi from the Borealis Psychedelic Science Summit in Stockholm. Catch you next time.